Happy Feast of the Divine Mercy. This is your friend Mauricio Perez. I would like to share with you some interesting details about the Gospel we read on this, the second Sunday of Easter. We read that passage in actually two different passages that are shown together. First, we see the appearance of Jesus to the apostles, to 10 of the apostles, and then we see the appearance to the apostles again, but this time including Thomas, the one who didn't believe that Jesus had resurrected first. One of the questions always interesting to me is, what's the gospel structure? And this time, to find the structure of this passage, we are going to use two exegetical techniques. First, the narrative analysis, and also the synchronic reading. And I think this is a good exercise. First of all, we pay attention to the narration of the first pericope that is presented in this text, in the reading at Mass, in which Jesus appears to the 10 apostles. The events are told in the following order. It happens on the first day of the week. The disciples are gathering and the doors are locked. And this is actually emphasized in the pericope. Then Jesus comes in through the doors that are locked, and he doesn't stand in front of them. He doesn't preside that gathering. He rather stands in their midst, which reminds us that he continues to be the Emmanuel. Even after the resurrection, he's still going to be among the people. Then Jesus shows his wounds, and finally he greets the apostles gathering, "Peace be with you." If we see the second pericope, in which Jesus again appears, this time to 11 apostles, including Thomas, we see that it also happens the first day of the week, and the disciples are also gathering, and this is narrated exactly following the same order. Then we see that the doors are locked once again, and Jesus comes in just as he did in the previous pericope. Then he stands in their midst, he greets them, "Peace be with you," and he ends by showing them his wounds, or at least showing his wounds not to the apostles, but this time to Thomas. So by doing this synchronic reading of the two pericopes, it is very clear that they are actually parallel pericopes. They are structured exactly following the same order and telling the same kind of details and events. Yet there is a subtle difference at the end, because if we see the end of the first pericope, we see that Jesus shows his wounds to the apostles, and then he greets them, "Peace be with you." Whereas on the second pericope, when he appears to the disciples and Thomas, he first greets the apostles, "Peace be with you," and then he ends showing Thomas his wounds. So we can see how the last two steps are flip-flopped among the two pericopes. Why is that? Well, we have to see how the first pericope leads into the institution of the sacrament of reconciliation, and the second pericope leads into that statement of faith by Thomas, "My Lord and my God." The two stories are narrated using the same structure. The end varies a bit, and it is logical. First of all, when Jesus appeared to the 10 apostles only, not including Judas, of course, who had killed himself, and not including Thomas, who was not present that day with them. First, he shows them his wounds to show them that he is the risen Jesus. But not only that he is the risen Jesus, because he could just appear and then they would see that he had resurrected. The fact that he is showing his wounds is very important, because Jesus wants to make the point that he is the risen Jesus who was crucified. This way, the crucifixion and the resurrection are tightly bound together. You cannot separate the resurrection from the crucifixion. The one who is risen is Jesus who was crucified, and he wants to make that clear. Both the crucifixion and the resurrection are part of the same mystery of redemption, and you cannot separate them. So after showing them his wounds and showing them that he is the one who was crucified, that is now risen, he greets them, "Peace be with you." So showing his wounds was a way of introducing himself to them, and then he greets them. In the case of the second pericope, when he appeared a week later to Thomas and to the apostles, he first greets them. He doesn't need to introduce himself anymore, and that's why he doesn't show his wounds first. But then after greeting them all, he shows his wounds to invite Thomas to come forward and touch his wounds just as he had requested in order to believe. At least to me, it is always very interesting to find the structures in which the biblical texts are written, and we can see how these two pericopes were composed the same. They were two different episodes for sure in the life of Jesus and the apostles, and the evangelist narrates those two different accounts using a similar structure that we can see here when we do this narrative analysis and then when we make a synchronic reading of the two pericopes. Now, there is one more question. Thomas wanted to touch the wounds of Jesus to be sure that he was truly risen. But did he actually touch Jesus' wounds? Did he? This is an interesting question. You know that according to St. Ignatius of Antioch, St. Augustine, and centuries later, even St. Thomas Aquinas, they all agreed that Thomas actually touched Jesus' wounds. Yet, modern scholars disagree, and I personally disagree as well. And the reason is paying attention to what the gospel tells us because it is very precise. John 20:29 says the following, "Have you come to believe because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen and have believed." Jesus is very clear. He speaks about seeing him, not about touching him. He doesn't question Thomas by saying, "Have you come to believe because you have touched my wounds? Blessed are those who have not touched and have believed." No, Jesus specifically speaks about seeing. And the gospel doesn't say at all that Thomas actually touched Jesus. He rather fell on his knees and declared, "My Lord and my God." Just a few details about today's gospel reading that I found interesting. Just wanted to share them with you. Be passionate about our faith.